There probably isn't a single more iconic handgun than the 1911, and the design being 111 years old at this point, and it's still in service today, well, it must have done something right. But it's worth noting off the bat that in airsoft, the single stack magazine will always have less gas and ammo capacity than a double stack like a Glock or High Kappa. That being said, what it lacks in practicality, this recent release from VFC makes up for in collectability. If you grew up watching SWAT movies, chances are it was often LAPD SWAT on screen, and those officers were issued, you guessed it, Kimber LAPD SWAT Customs. In the 1980s, long before SWAT became a household name, back when the standard police-issued sidearm was still often a .38 special revolver, and eventually 9mm M9s, there was a pretty big need for a sidearm chambered in a more powerful .45 ACP. Legend has it that police armorers were taking confiscated 1911s from evidence lockers and upgrading them for SWAT use. This worked for a time, but eventually SWAT needed a more standardized sidearm, and after a grueling trial of 5 different 1911s, settled on the Kimber Custom. Kimber added the department requested Meprolite sights, 30 lines per inch grip checkering, and put a unique serial number prefix KLA114, an homage to the unit number for LAPD SWAT. These unique models, stamped with LAPD SWAT Custom, were unavailable to civilians and quickly became ubiquitous to the SWAT team. In fact, each officer was actually issued 2 Kimbers. One came equipped with a cutting-edge for the time, surefire weapon light, and one without for standard duty. It was deemed too cumbersome to swap on the fly, and of course this was long before pistol rails were even a thing. If that pedigree doesn't do anything for you, this 1911 can still stand on its own, but for fans of SWAT history, this Kimber should definitely be on your shopping list. The VFC SWAT Custom comes in a relatively unadorned cardboard box, which is kind of a shame as I would have loved to see a more collector's presentation, but of course, you don't buy the gun for the box, and this gun is extremely faithful to the original. It has all the licensed trades you'd expect and even has the KLA114 serial prefix, which is a nice touch. It even says Yonkers, New York, where the original Kimbers were manufactured. For fans of the classic 1911, you'll feel right at home with this variant, and things like the 3-hole trigger and extended base plate on the magazine might be almost commonplace nowadays, but back then, those were features found only on custom guns. The grip shape and angle are standard 1911, so if you're used to something more like a Glock, it might require a bit of adjustment to your grip angles. Slide action is buttery smooth out of the box, and the front slide serrations are a welcome inclusion for press checking. The safety lever has a nice click into place, something many 1911s actually fall flat with, but like the real Kimber, this one lacks an ambidextrous safety. The 3-hole silver trigger is a nice accent on a black gun and has milled serrations on the front which feel great. There's about 2mm of light take-up before the wall. The break itself is nice and light, but maybe without a good break-in period, had a little bit of a gritty feel to it. Over travel is minimal, and the over travel screw seems well adjusted out of the box. The reset is audible, but you don't really feel it through the trigger. A decent 1911 trigger, but we notice some play in that physical trigger, which may account for a slightly grittier feel. In the world of airsoft triggers, it's better than most, but for a 1911, which are often some of the cleanest triggers, this one feels about average. Above average though is the lack of barrel play. This is one of the best we've seen, possibly because of an improved barrel bushing system. Slide play at the back is there, but definitely acceptable. Same story at the front. Not locked up like a bank vault, but allows for a very smooth slide travel. The sights are unfortunately not actual night sights as on the original Kimber, but very bright 3-dot white sights. Paint and molding is extremely crisp, and I have no complaints on the sights. Taking a look at the internals, this is a unique VFC design and will not be compatible with Tokyo Marui spec parts. The major design difference is the spring guide hop-up adjustment, which VFC have adopted into their Glock designs as well. It's definitely a convenient system, allowing for a quick adjustment without field stripping the gun at all. Gassing up the magazine, don't be fooled by the base plate. This magazine actually fills from the back below the knocker valve. BBs are loaded very easily through the enlarged BB loading channel, and each mag holds 20 rounds, way more than the 7 rounds of the real Kimber, but pales in comparison to the 31 of a high kappa. Magazine fitment is very nice and slides into the 1911 with a very smooth and tactile feel. For fans of a nice feeling mag swap, like I am, you'll be very happy with this one. With the smooth slide travel, the gun cycles very nicely. While that trigger, as mentioned, isn't phenomenal, it definitely doesn't detract from the shooting. Blowback is nice and crisp, and gas efficiency is actually really solid for a single stack, locking back on empty after a full magazine. Overall, the VFC LAPD SWAT Custom 2 is a solid option, that is if you're okay with the trade-off for single stack magazines. Build quality is every bit as good as VFC's other gas offerings, like their excellent Glock line. As a collector's piece though, the accurate features and licensed trademarks are definitely a major selling point, and though it lacks the wealth of aftermarket a TM Spec 1911 offers, the quality of this pistol certainly holds its own. And if you're a big fan of LAPD SWAT movies, well, this pistol definitely deserves a spot in your collection. As always, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next one.